Welcome to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome in Soccer Morning. Here we go. Ready. It's going to be an interesting week. One of those weeks where your brain just does not want to kick into full gear, but we have a lot to cover. It never stops. The world of football. Today is a very interesting day. We've got news out of Zurich. We've got lots of results from the weekend to cover, the implications of said results. We're going to do all of that today. Two very special guests, two very good guests on today's program. We're bringing back Ross Dunbar, talk some German football with him. Pep Guardiola officially to leave this summer from Bayern Munich to be replaced by Carlo Ancelotti. We'll get into that. The situation in the Bundesliga. Hertha Berlin sitting in third place. The break now kicking in Germany. And we'll take stock of the league here as they go into their winter hibernation and get ready for the second half of the season come January. Also on today's program at 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time, Simon Evans. He'll join us from Zurich, where he is there covering the fallout from the FIFA scandal, the latest bit of news from the FIFA scandal that will lead us right into a rundown of today's news. We start with Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini, banned 8 years by FIFA's ethics committee for their agreement, the situation that led to a 2 million Swiss franc payment to Michel Platini from FIFA as part of an oral agreement, an oral contract that Sepp Blatter says was in place from as far back as 1999. The payment was made in 2011. At a press conference after the announcement was made, Sepp Blatter, with a bandage on his face, apparently had a mole removed, said, I'll be back. So he's, maybe he doesn't understand calling himself a punching ball. He made statements basically saying it's everybody else's fault, not his. I'm really sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry that I'm still somewhere a punching ball. I'm sorry that I'm as president of FIFA this punching ball. I am sorry for football. I'm sorry for the 400-plus FIFA members. I'm sorry. I am sorry about how I am treated in this world of humanitarian qualities. I am sorry for the Fédération Internationale de Football Association. But I am also sorry about me, how I'm treated in this world. The man has no ability to understand his culpability in the situation. He called this a gentleman's agreement, said they thought they were in the clear. He also said he cannot be responsible for the corruption in FIFA. Again, passing the buck, Sepp Blatter. For his part, Michel Platini has called it a real farce, said it's a pathetic cover-up, and has obviously said he will appeal the decision, as will Sepp Blatter. Both of these men very upset by their 8-year bans. This essentially ends Sepp Blatter's role in FIFA. At his age, it's very difficult to imagine him unless this is overturned, and why would it be? It's hard to imagine him coming back from this. As for Michel Platini, it probably ends his bid to be FIFA president come February of next year. As I mentioned, Bayern Munich announced the departure of Pep Guardiola this summer. He'll leave the club. Carlo Ancelotti will succeed the Spaniard. What's next for Pep? That's the big question that will be hanging over the head of every big club in the world. Manchester United, Chelsea, many others, for that matter. Manchester City, as a matter of fact, as well. In fact, the merry-go-round will be fascinating. Manuel Pellegrini's name connected to Chelsea today in a rumor that I saw. So it'll be interesting. Barcelona has won the Club World Cup. They won 3-0, in the final over South American champion River Plate. Messi started the scoring. Luis Suarez hit for 2. The Club World Cup is a thing that people do out somewhere. I mean, are we excited about this? By the way, Sepp Blatter congratulated Barcelona on their Club World Cup win before he went into his statements lamenting the fact he got caught. I like this. Mike on Twitter. I'm sorry I got caught. That's essentially what Sepp Blatter's been saying for the past, year. It's almost been a year, right? Since the FIFA scandal started to unfold. Now we will see what happens. And keep in mind, and this is a distraction, and FIFA corruption is something that needs to be addressed. But it's been pointed out by some very smart people, Muridi Marungi, my friend from Fusion and Soccer Gods, that despite the fact that this seems like a big deal, that Blatter and Platini being banned is certainly there's schadenfreude there. What really needs to be focused on are the continuing issues, like the 7,000 people who have died on the job building Qatar's World Cup for 2022. That's certainly should be top of mind. We should continue. And the current FIFA president, Hayatu himself, has been brought up on corruption charges in the past. So it's not as though everything's cleaned out, hunky-dory, let's move forward. Results from the weekend, Chelsea winning their first game since Jose Mourinho's firing, 3-1 over Sunderland at Stamford Bridge. Other Premier League results, Everton falling to Leicester, 2-3 at Goodison Park. Manchester United losing to Norwich. Watford, 3-0 over Liverpool. I saw some video of, I didn't get to watch that game. I saw some videos of Jurgen Klopp. He did not look very happy. I imagine he's not very happy today. Arsenal and Manchester City today. Big clash on a Monday. In Spain, Real Madrid dropped 10 on 9-man Rayo Vallecano. This came after. It was such a weird game. They were down 2-1 inside of 12 minutes. And fans at the Bernabeu were booing Real Madrid, booing Rafa Benitez. Clearly, it's been a really weird year for Real Madrid. Mostly negative feeling around the club. Of course, they're never going to drop too far down the table in Spain, but they aren't challenging for a title at the moment. But they scored 10 on Rayo Vallecano. It helps when two players are sent off inside of half an hour. It helps you if you have the firepower in Real Madrid to go score 10. First time a La Liga team has scored 10 in a match since 1960. Gareth Bale scored 4 of those goals. So a good day for the Welshman there. All right, let's set this up. Again, a big day on Soccer Morning. We're going to be here all week. We'll be here till Thursday, obviously. Thursday morning will be the last show of the week. But we have 2 very good guests lined up for you today. Ross Dunbar will join us. He covers German football for many outlets, including Fox Soccer. And then Simon Evans will join us to talk about the FIFA scandal following Ross. 2 very good guests. After that, we will open up the phone lines, give you a chance to jump in. Maybe your Christmas vacation has already started. You're free to pick up the phone and give us a call. We'll talk about anything that's happening in the soccer world. Hell, we'll talk about whatever is happening anywhere, for that matter. It's one of those kinds of weeks. Good to have you here on Soccer Morning. Here we go. Coming up, Ross Dunbar, German football, then Simon Evans. FIFA scandal. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
All right, we're back on Soccer Morning on a Monday, deep into December. And what that means in Germany is that they're going to take a break for a while. They'll stop playing Bundesliga soccer, but they'll come back. We're going to take stock of the league and certainly talk about the big news out of Bayern Munich as Pep Guardiola steps aside coming this summer with Ross Dunbar, who you can find on Twitter at RossDunbar93. Writes for Fox Soccer and does some other things as well. Hi, Ross. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. How are yourself?
Doing well. I'm ready for Christmas, I guess. I'm ready for, I don't know. I'm not ready for the Bundesliga break, I suppose, but they are. I'm sure after a half of a season so far. Let's go. Let's talk about Pep Guardiola, though. You and I recently spoke. This was, I think, rumored. Everybody said this was coming. I think Bild had it ahead of, once Bild says it, pretty much everybody accepted his gospel. And here it is. They've announced that Pep's leaving in the summer and Carlo Ancelotti comes in. Just give me your assessment of this, Ross.
It took me a while to kind of come up with an opinion because it's quite a shift from Guardiola to Ancelotti. I mean, I think Guardiola has really transformed Bayern's style of play. He's brought his own tactics and his own philosophy to the game. With Ancelotti, I suspect that Bayern won't change a lot. It looks to me like it's very similar to when Jupp Heynckes came in at Bayern Munich. He is a safe pair of hands. He's the guy who will keep everyone motivated. He's a guy who can bring a little bit of composure maybe in the Champions League. So I can see why. However, I mean, a guy who's 56 years old looks to me like a little bit of a stopgap appointment. I don't know if you would agree with that, but I'm not sure that it's maybe the best candidate for Bayern at the moment. I mean, I would be interested to know maybe what you think. I haven't spoken to anyone else about it, so to me, I think a guy who has been around the block, he's done his thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't look to me as if it's the guy who could take Bayern to the next level as opposed to where they are now.
Yeah, again, I mean, I think it seems that as though there's a small group of candidates possible. I mean, you're not going out of a certain box if you're Bayern Munich because of the size of the club, because of the ambitions. You want somebody who has been there, who knows, certainly knows how to handle a club of that size. I imagine that's part of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ancelotti is great at mediating between sporting directors and presidents. Of course, he worked under Berlusconi at AC Milan had 10 years or whatever, and had so much great success. He's worked with Florentino Perez. He's worked with the guys at PSG, Roman Abramovich as well at Chelsea. So he has basically worked with as many oligarchs as you can think of. So going to Bayern Munich, I'm not sure he'll have any problems working with Matthias Sammer, the sporting director, or Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, the chairman. So, I think you make a good point there about having the experience at the highest level because, while I think Pep Guardiola has done a good job at Bayern Munich, I think you can't ignore the two semi-finals in the last 2 years where he took a tactical gamble at the wrong time and it really didn't pay off. We saw against Real Madrid, they went from a normal 4-2-3-1 formation to a 4-2-4. He listened to his players and obviously that backfired. And against Barcelona, he went 3v3 against Messi, Suarez and Neymar. And that obviously was a risky move as well. So I'm not sure Ancelotti would make such big gambles in those games. And maybe that's something that, will be an advantage to him.
Does this benefit the club, this team, for the balance of this season with the trophies they have in play, with the goals that they have? Does it give them a little bit more incentive to go and finish the job under Pep, or is it the opposite?
You could look at it either way. I mean, the Bayern message has been that the decision is not going to affect the performance of the players. It's not going to affect the motivation. Actually, the message from them is that it's going to help and it's going to be an incentive to finish the job. I mean, Rummenigge said that in an ideal world, Pep would leave with Bayern having won the treble, which would be obviously the league, the German Cup, and the Champions League. However, I mean, we spoke about it last time that I'm not sure this is a good thing necessarily for Bayern to announce that your manager is going to be leaving in 6 months' time. I mean, as I said, if Pep Guardiola doesn't win the Champions League, which very high expectations, people will use that stick to beat him. People will say, well, what about the mentality of the players? Was it an attitude problem? That kind of thing. And I think Guardiola's kind of leaving himself open a little bit to extra criticism when he doesn't really need it, because the German media does look at him, I think in a very harsh way. He does get criticism for really basic things, and I think this is another example where if he doesn't win things or dominate in a way that Bayern would expect, then he might get that kind of flack coming his way.
And we've already talked a bit about what's next for Pep Guardiola. I mean, okay, look, obviously he achieved all of those things at Barcelona. That was his club. That it was his home. He decided he wanted to take on a new challenge. I don't begrudge him that fact or that opportunity, Ross. But at the same time, now he's become yet another, journeyman manager who's going to bounce around from club to club. And again, now he's established that he's at that level, the Barcelona Bayern Munich level. There's only 3, 4, 5 clubs in the world that he can continue to have a career at.
Yeah. I was listening to Graham Hunter on the BBC, and he said exactly the same thing. He said that Pep Guardiola's ambitions were like after Barcelona to manage Manchester United and to manage the Brazilian national team. So apart from that, that's pretty much it. He's done almost everything. But it's I guess now it's a sign of the times that these coaches are working only in 2 or 3 year kind of blocks. Yeah. I think that was one of the big discussions around Jose Mourinho's departure from Chelsea, that it's probably the end of that kind of dynastic kind of football manager. Okay, Arsene Wenger's probably the last of that kind of type, but we're now seeing that as almost being completely extinguished from top level European football. We're now looking at clubs who have structures already in the club, like Bayern Munich, for example, have Matthias Sammer, the sporting director. He is the guy who is the heart and soul of that organisation. You have Michael Retzke, who's the technical director, the guy who would go out and sign the players. And it doesn't matter what's going to happen with the head coach. These are the guys who will always be there. And I think there is obviously advantages to having that kind of structure, which I'm not really too sure you have in England, because, if Louis van Gaal was to leave Manchester United, all of his work, all of his ideas, all of his coaching staff, all of his contacts would all go. You wouldn't have a core structure already in place at that football club. Yeah. So it's interesting to see how that's changed over the last 10 years.
Well, is there? This is going to widen out this conversation, but it seems to me that, and this is just a very facile assessment, Ross. So if I'm wrong, you could tell me. But it seems as though there's a tradition in Germany of former players, of people who had been in the game, moving into those positions, moving to the sporting director position, moving into an executive position, rather than just going into the touchline and coaching. Whereas I'm not sure that that's the case in England as much.
Yeah, that's a good point. I read a really good article ahead of the German FA's Science Congress in January, and one of the things that they're trying to do is they're trying to bring in like a coaching qualification for anybody who wants to be a sporting director. So any of the Bundesliga sporting directors would have to go through a set of exams, a set of they'd have to have certain background, whatever. That's a very interesting development. We're now seeing that actually the German clubs are they're trying to make the club management a little bit more academic. Then it's not just we've got football men in charge. Right. They want guys who have the right background. And you look at guys, for example, at Bayern Munich, Matthias Sammer has been to university, he's been to the DFB, working in youth development, so he's got a great background. Before him, Christian Nellinger was the sporting director. He got a degree from Munich Business School. Of course, he was a great player in his time as well. So it's very interesting to see that people are going down that route after their career, and not just maybe going into coaching and maybe being coaching in the youth department of a football club. They're actually going down the route of getting the right qualifications to be a sporting director. And again, I think that's a very unique thing in Germany.
Yeah, it's happening here in the States, obviously much younger league, and players who are far from the same kind of notoriety as the German players who are doing it. But it is interesting just whether or not English football can, because it seems it does seem to be a disconnect. Sometimes the figures who overtake the managers at an English club tend to be business figures, tend to be they're different kinds of individuals. I'm not making a value judgment necessarily, Ross. I'm just kind of pointing this out. And now that we look at again going back to Pep and what his next step is there for you? Is there a bit of I don't know. Again, I don't know if I want to make a value judgment about these 2 or 3 year blocks, but if that's what we've got now, then that certainly changes the character of some of these clubs. That when you have Alex Ferguson in one place for 25 years, that creates a feeling around Manchester United that can't be replicated if you're going to turn over a manager every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think. I mean, I don't know if you would agree, but I think stability is one of the most underrated kind of tenements to getting success. Absolutely. I mean, I know that sometimes you have to pull the plug on a manager if it's not happening, but if you have a sense of familiarity and you have a sense of leadership at that football club for 10, 15 years, I think that can be a really big advantage. And Sir Alex Ferguson is a great example. But, I mean, even at Barcelona, the kind of model that they've had over the last 10, 15 years, they've had guys who understand the football club. They understand how things work. So, I mean, I think you're right. I think now we're seeing that, it's like almost like a 3-year maximum for coaches, and I certainly think that Pep Guardiola, having experienced a bad 4th year at Barcelona, I think he's going to be very strict and say, look, I'm only going to do 3 years here, and that's it. I'm out regardless of what happens. And I'm not really too sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, I suppose. But as you say, I think you might see a situation where clubs will have maybe 2 or 3 years of really a high level performance, and then they might drop off for another 2 or 3 years, and that should be very interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, look, the coaching has always been a mercenary vocation, Ross, but it seems, especially at the top levels, where we're getting something that's I don't want to say that it's unseemly, but it just doesn't feel. There's no depth to it. I mean, these guys are literally coming in. They're asked to take an incredibly rich collection of talent, because the talent has only been consolidated in the top 10 or 12 teams in Europe. And we're going to start to see the same clubs in those finals. We're going to see Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and maybe PSG, who's, I guess, quote unquote new. But again, that's about money. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Again, one of the things that's come out of the Chelsea debate with Jose Mourinho is that I think now we're entering a definite era of player power. The players really are the most important thing at a football club. If they don't like the manager, they just won't play. And the manager is the guy who will have to be sacked or take the flak from the press. And again, even when I look at Barcelona and Luis Enrique, for example, I know that I'm not going to say he's not a great manager, but I kind of wonder how much influence Luis Enrique actually has on that team, because you've got Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. I mean, you've got 3 outstanding players who will win you games. And so I think we are entering that phase now where actually it's the quality of the players that's probably the most important thing now. And okay, you'll have teams like Atletico Madrid under Simeone and
that's what I was thinking
Thomas Tuchel, for example, in Germany, who really kind of buck the trend, and that will distinguish them from the rest. But I think you can see that there is becoming a kind of hierarchy now in football. But
even then, Ross, I mean, a coach like Simeone, okay, and he's still there, and who knows, maybe that'll last. But he's been linked to Chelsea. I'm not saying he's going to end up at Chelsea, but he's been linked to Chelsea as a target there. So even when a manager comes up, takes an unfancy team or a team that's not supposed to compete on that level, does something remarkable. I mean, Jose Mourinho with Porto in 2004. They are then co-opted, whether they choose to be in most cases because the money and the fame, but they are then co-opted by that top class of clubs, and then just become another manager rolling through club after club.
Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, that's how football has worked. I kind of think. I mean, people say that football's a meritocracy and that you can rise to the top kind of authentically or through hard work, but I think nowadays it's becoming very difficult to do that, and you can see that in the Champions League. One thing people complained about in the Champions League draw was that it's the same teams playing each other, it's the same games, and that perhaps is leading to a sense of that it's quite boring, But I think that's a good point that you make.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at the league table right now. Bayern Munich obviously clear at the top. By 8 points now. I mean, we had talked about it being 5 points. They've got a bit more of a cushion as they go into into the break, and now we get a month of talking about Pep Guardiola's future, I suppose.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the one thing that's going to rumble on, I think, until the end of the season. And unfortunately, I think since we last spoken, I think the title race is pretty much all but gone now. I can't see Bayern dropping enough points for Dortmund to come back and win it. I mean, that was the one thing about Borussia Dortmund, is that there's a real kind of propensity to have just a really bad day at the office. And that game on Saturday at Cologne, they were very lucky not to lose that game 3 or 4-1. And I think it probably shows you that Dortmund have still got a little bit to go to catch Bayern. But I must admit, I think with Guardiola leaving in the summer, I think there might be a little opportunity there for Dortmund to push Bayern a little bit harder next season. I'm interested to see how Ancelotti, comes into Bayern, how he adapts to German football, because I think one of the underrated things, about Guardiola is that when things aren't going well, when Bayern aren't playing well, and that happens very often, he can change matches by making a little tactical change. He can really upset the opposition by bringing on a player off the bench. And I'm not sure Ancelotti is that type of manager. I don't really recall that from his time at Real Madrid and his time at Chelsea, that he was a real kind of in-game kind of tinker type coach. Yeah. And that's what Guardiola has, obviously, is a big skill set for him.
All right, so as you said, maybe not this season. We'll see if Dortmund can get closer next year. But in the meantime, where is the intrigue in the table? Hertha Berlin's in third place at the break.
Yeah, I mean that's one really interesting storyline, because obviously Berlin, the capital of Germany, has never really had a football club to match the size of its population and the size of its importance in Germany. But Hertha Berlin this season have really turned things around, and I think the formula is quite simple. I mean, they have just been very consistent, and they've got some decent players. I mean, Vedran Ibisevic from Stuttgart is a very kind of proven kind of Bundesliga striker. He scored a lot of goals at Stuttgart and Hoffenheim. Salomon Kalou, former Chelsea player, vastly experienced, of course. They've got guys like Vladimir Darida, who's a really good Czech midfielder, a guy who could play Champions League football quite comfortably, I think. And so they've just been very consistent, and obviously they're being helped by the fact that they've got a little advantage over Wolfsburg and Gladbach and Leverkusen and Schalke, who are they're almost competing with each other to finish in the top four. Hertha have already got a 3, 4, 5, 6 point advantage. So that's massive credit to what Paul Dardai has done there at Hertha. I must admit, I think it would be interesting to see perhaps Hertha Berlin against Leicester City in the Champions League next season. That would be certainly against the grain.
Wouldn't that be hilarious? Obviously it'd be great. And for all this talk that for everything I've said so far, Ross, about the elite class, and as you said, the same clubs playing each other in the same games year after year in the Champions League, we do have a couple of those. We have a couple of flies in the ointment, as people might say. Here, I mean, Leicester's obviously way overachieving at the top of the English table, but even a club like Hertha breaking up the usual party. I hope. I'm too cynical to believe they're definitely going to do it, Ross. But at least I have some hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think you use a good word. I think they are almost overachieving. I saw that Fox, for example, used Michael Calley's expected goals metric in their coverage at the weekend. I don't know if you saw that. No. It was very interesting. Yeah. They don't really seem to create these great chances consistently. It seems to be very kind of average, around the box type efforts, and I think you can see that they don't really have a great deal of quality. They're just very, very efficient. I mean, they're taking something like 60-70% of their shots on goal at the moment, which is quite a high record, and I don't think they're going to be able to sustain that over the course of a season. But I mean, even if Hertha was to finish in Europe, even if they finish 5th or 6th or 7th, that would be quite an impressive achievement, I think.
Yeah. And I'm not a stats guy in general, Ross. I mean, I can appreciate the use of stats. I can't begin to understand how you come to expected goals and all of that. But and this is not a lament against them. I'm not saying anybody should ignore them or we should stop using them. But 15 years ago, 20 years ago, Hertha Berlin's in third place. You just go, oh, this is amazing. And you might identify it as overachieving, but you don't exactly have a way to measure their overachieving. And then now, again, it's a cynicism that creeps in because, oh, well, look, they're scoring more than the stats say they should. And that's, I don't know. I mean, I hope they continue to overachieve. I hope they can continue that over the course of the whole season.
Yeah, no, exactly. I completely agree. I mean, obviously, yeah, it was you guys that have brought the statistics into football. I mean, we generally don't bother with this kind of thing. But I mean, I look at someone like Jamie Vardy, for example, in England, and I keep hearing that he's a top class striker. And whenever I watch him play, I just don't know. I look at him and I think I'm not really too sure that you are what your goal record is reflecting. Do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes statistics can have massive benefits in terms of, if you can see that somebody is hitting those kind of numbers consistently, then you know that that player is obviously of a genuine quality. But if a player is only doing it over, 6-7 weeks, then you have to maybe have a little bit of doubt about that. So it does have its advantages, but I mean, I still think that certainly in the analytics community, there's a little bit of I would say an arrogance about it. Okay, we're right, you're wrong type thing. But I don't think football's like that. I think there's an element of fortune, a little bit of luck in it sometimes. Yeah. And it'd be interesting to see how it develops. But I don't think you can make 100% decisions out of just numbers alone. Certainly in football.
And look, luck is something you can't account for, but luck tends to run out, and the more talented teams tend to win out. That isn't always the case, and maybe we will certainly be rooting for Hertha as an underdog and Leicester as an underdog. Speaking of players who maybe are good strikers or are quality and have shown it, again, Chicharito Hernandez doing it for Bayer Leverkusen this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, his goal record just continues to be amazing. I mean, I think the numbers now are something like 17, 18 goals in 14 games, something like that. It's just incredible. And I think it would be worrying for Leverkusen that almost all of their goals are coming from Javier Hernandez right now. I mean, when you have a player like that, it's fantastic that you can rely on him. But this is the reason why they got knocked out of the Champions League. You can't be reliable on just one player to score your goals. I mean, guys like Çalhanoğlu and Bellarabi are not really delivering on that front. But it's a very he's been a great signing for Bayer Leverkusen. And as we said last time, I think that will be great for the Mexican national team when they have a player like him playing, top level European football, scoring goals week in, week out. And I think the Bundesliga and the DFL was actually making an effort to try and break into that market. I think they're actually trying to break into that Mexican market, which is quite interesting.
That brings me to the transfer of Marco Fabian from Chivas de Guadalajara to Eintracht Frankfurt. Is that a direct result of Chicharito Hernandez having so much success?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about him, but I've heard that he's a bit of a colourful character, a colourful type of player, and that's good for the Bundesliga. And you look at what they've done with Chicharito on their website, for example, in English, they're really pushing this Mexican and kind of Spanish speaking image. They're really trying to make that happen, and I think you've seen that with Japanese players over the last maybe 5-6 years. I think Shinji Kagawa was a real kind of groundbreaker in that respect, because he came in from the J League and he made a massive impact. And when Dortmund were able to see thousands upon thousands of Japanese fans going to Signal Iduna Park every couple of weeks, they could see that there was money to be made. And now you're beginning to see, you have seen a real kind of wave of Japanese players come to Germany. I mean, there are obviously former German players who played in Japan. They're well connected, for example, and these are the guys who are bringing Japanese players to Germany. And we're seeing that if you're a young player in the J League, you're not thinking about playing for Chelsea or for Arsenal. You're thinking about playing for Dortmund or Bayern Munich, and I think that's a good thing for the Bundesliga. And it'll be interesting to see if they can do that in Mexico. But I mean, I would imagine they would be up against young kids who want to play for Barcelona and Real Madrid, and that's always going to be the big challenge for a team like Bayern or Dortmund or Leverkusen in that kind of Mexican market.
Yeah, the Mexico does not have a huge tradition of exporting players. I mean, obviously, you have some notable names in the past, but it's something, especially in a place like Germany, maybe that doesn't obviously follow, but there's an opportunity there. Lots of talent in Mexico, clearly, Ross. Let's take a look. Let's look at the bottom of the table with the window coming up, the transfer window, January transfer window coming up, and again, whether or not we see a lot of activity, you'll certainly see some clubs try to make a couple of signings here or there, maybe shore up their depth or find a player who can score some goals. I'm looking at this when I see Werder Bremen at the bottom, and obviously Americans, we have an interest there because of Aaron Johansson and his continuing injury problems.
Yeah. I mean, I've watched a little bit of Werder Bremen in the last few weeks, and obviously he's not been involved in the selection. And I must admit, I would be quite worried for any of those bottom 4 or 5 teams because the relegation race this season is wide open. I mean, I still think that Darmstadt and Ingolstadt, the two teams who were promoted this season from the second division, I still think both of those sides will be in and around the bottom 3 at the end of the season. But for any of those teams, Werder Bremen, Hanover, Hoffenheim, Stuttgart, perhaps. I think we'll probably lose one of those teams at the end of the season. I mean, Stuttgart's win on Saturday against Wolfsburg was an outstanding performance. I mean, this is the kind of performance that we know Stuttgart are capable of. They've got a high wage bill. I think they've got something like the 9th or 10th biggest wage bill in the Bundesliga. They've got international standard players, and so they should be out of the race for relegation. But I mean, that's the thing; it's still wide open. And you look at Augsburg, for example. Augsburg were bottom of the league 3 or 4 weeks ago, and now they've won, I think, 3 of their last 4 games. They've beaten Schalke, they've beaten Hamburg away, and now they're out of it, and they've got European football to look forward to after Christmas. So I think a lot of these teams are now beginning to pick up form, and I think the winter break will be an advantage because they'll be able to work away, and they'll be able to work on the training pitch. And German coaches always talk about the opportunity to work on training just for 3 or 4 weeks. And I think you'll see a lot of these teams improve over the next few months, and it'll be interesting to see, as you say, which clubs actually make moves in the transfer market, because German clubs are not really known for making late deals. They don't like to make late deals towards deadline day. I mean, we don't really have that kind of deadline day extravaganza that you have in the UK, but I think they'll try to do deals as early as possible so that they have the time to integrate themselves within the squad.
There's no German analog for Jim White. That doesn't happen. What's happening? No.
Well, this year they started to do that, and it was a pretty simple thing. They just called it their deadline day almost, and I mean, obviously they're trying to copy it from the English side of things, but it didn't have the same excitement with German clubs not signing any players on the last day of the window.
Well, is that very quickly? Is that an issue of conservatism or an issue of cash? Is an issue of not wanting to pay the premium that comes with January transfers?
I think there are a couple of reasons. I think if you listen to German sporting directors, they will always talk very negatively about the kind of money that you have in England and how that leads to almost panic buying. If you're a team that's out of form and you have an extra 10 million quid to spend in the bank, then you're going to spend that on a player. You're not going to throw a young player in from your academy. You're going to go out and sign someone high quality. And of course, I think German clubs like to have their business in place. They like to have the foundations and the structure in place and all that kind of thing. So I guess there's an element of kind of German business practice to it as well.
Yep. Ross Dunbar covering German football, talking German football. Go follow him on Twitter, Ross Dunbar 93. Also Fox Soccer. Ross, appreciate the time. Hopefully we'll talk to you, but if not, have a good Christmas and a good New Year.
Cheers, thank you, all the best, guys.
There goes
Happy
Ross
holidays.
Dunbar.
Cheers.
Good stuff from him. Fantastic from Ross Dunbar. When we come back, Simon Evans live from Zurich. We'll talk FIFA and the scandal, and Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning. WorldSoccerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
All right, we are back on Soccer Morning, and as you may have heard, things are happening in Zurich surrounding the FIFA scandal. FIFA Ethics Committee making decisions on Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini, and to talk about that and the responses from both of those men, Simon Evans joins us now live from Zurich. Hi, Simon. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Jason. Yourself?
I'm doing well. So Simon is there with Reuters, and Simon, there was already word that these bans were going to be lengthy. That has certainly colored how these men have responded. It's interesting to note the difference in their responses.
Yeah, absolutely. 8 years for each of them. In Sepp Blatter's case, he gave a press conference at the old FIFA headquarters just down the road from where FIFA are based now. Quite a rambling, strange sort of press conference where he sort of littered his defiance and his anger with some strange, at times incomprehensible comments about Nelson Mandela and various other issues, but basically saying that the FIFA's Ethics Committee had no right to go after the FIFA president, and in any case he'd done nothing wrong. Michel Platini preferring a short statement through UEFA and also through his lawyers. Both of them are talking about appealing these decisions, of course, and they do have those options to do that. And Sepp Blatter, interestingly, talking about using the Swiss courts. And as people who follow FIFA affairs will know, over the years, FIFA has taken a very strong line against anyone using civil courts to resolve disputes in football. So it's rather ironic that at this time Sepp Blatter is suggesting that he may well do exactly that.
It's again an instance, an opportunity for Sepp Blatter to shift blame and to basically say he has no responsibility to make sure that FIFA stays clean, that it's not corrupt, and that he can't be held responsible for the actions of. We've seen the same act over and over again. Is this going to be the appeal notwithstanding, Simon? Is this going to be the final act of Sepp Blatter with FIFA?
It's hard to see, unless, obviously, if the appeals are overturned, he goes first to the FIFA Appeals Committee itself, and then if he loses there, he can go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport in Lausanne, Switzerland, where, things have been overturned before. Mohammed bin Hammam won his case there, and then the Ethics Committee came back and did him from something else as well and finished him off. It's hard to see. Obviously, there is that process there, and that has to be respected, but, the clock is ticking towards that Congress in February where FIFA is due to elect another president, and once that's done, really, what is there left for Sepp Blatter to fight for?
You can follow Simon on Twitter at SG Evans. Make sure you're doing that as he has his dispatches from Zurich revolving around these bans. Now, let's go back. I mean, the case is about this it's a presidential advisory role that Platini had at the end of the last century, and then he wasn't paid for it until 2011. Again, we come to this situation where Sepp Blatter is very much he's very comfortable saying, just believe what I say, don't check up on anything I actually do. This particular case in 8 years, is that the right sort of move for FIFA? Is this as much about the image of FIFA as it is about what these two individuals did outside of the ethics of the organization?
Well, to be fair, if we look at the detail of the judgment, without going into too much of it, what they say is that there was nothing in the case that they found regarding that payment that would be able to prove it was an act of corruption or bribery, that there was nothing, that the idea that Blatter paid Platini this money to secure votes in the 2011 FIFA presidential election, that there was nothing there to suggest that was the case. Had it been that case, they would have been facing life bans. So the 8-year bans, while in practice, given their age, effectively ends Blatter's and Platini's careers in football administration, is much lighter than what they could have if it had been proven to be corruption. So what they've actually been done for is for failing in their fiduciary duties, not reporting things properly, that it was presented as a gift to Platini rather than a formal payment with a proper written contract and so on. And Blatter actually did, in the middle of this rather odd briefing, concede that it was an error not to have recorded this and made the payment, properly through the books and so on. But he said that wasn't an ethics case, that was an administration matter, which is something, of course, which the ethics committee would strongly dispute.
Sure. Well, I mean, look, he has a responsibility. I mean, this just speaks again to how protected some of these individuals, certainly Sepp Blatter and some of these other individuals, have been at the top of FIFA, where it almost didn't matter what they did. They thought they didn't have, whether he was actively being corrupt or not is sort of beyond the point if he did not follow the strict guidelines that should be dictating the FIFA presidential role.
Well, exactly. You look at so many of these cases that we've had now. You look at the casual way in which money was sent around. You look at all the Jack Warner cases that are under investigation, whether it be the money from South Africa, the money from Australia, or the television rights that he was given for $1 by Sepp Blatter. In all these cases, it does show a very casual attitude of just, let's just send the cash over without having, a really normal corporate approach to handling finances. And that's something that internally FIFA, to be fair, are dealing with now and making sure. And after all these cases, it would be pretty amazing if they weren't tightening up on those sort of things, wouldn't it? Even FIFA. But yeah, it just reveals a world where, money is sloshed around far, far too easily, and that's what we're discovering more and more about as these cases unfold.
Yes, I mean, and the thing that we are constantly aware of is that we don't know what the end of this is. I mean, certainly the next, the next landmark along the way will be that FIFA presidential election early 2016, but beyond that, in terms of what what the Department of Justice here in the States continues to do, I've heard, I believe it was as recently as last week that some FIFA funds were frozen in Switzerland. This could unravel even further, so far enough, and we'll get to Platini in a second, far enough that whoever is president next that might not even matter, because FIFA will have some further reckoning to do that could I'm not sure that the organization dissolves, Simon, but what is the end game?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question, really. How far does the Department of Justice want to go with this? I mean, so far, all the cases that have come up have been cases that have been very much within their jurisdiction, that relate to deals done in the United States or money that moved through the United States and wire payments and so on. There are obviously, there's been suggestions that they are looking at Blatter themselves and Jerome Velker and the South African payment. There may be a way that they can get into that issue. It certainly was hinted at in the last indictment document that came out of the DOJ. So who knows where all that's going to go and where it leaves FIFA. I mean, obviously what FIFA have been trying to do since the arrests in May is to show the Department of Justice that they are being responsible, that they are taking action, that the cases of corruption were things that harmed FIFA rather than reflect FIFA being some sort of organized crime association itself. Whether that changes is really the crucial factor. At the moment, formally, FIFA is the victim of all this corruption in the legal terms, as strange as it sounds sometimes to the ear. But, if that was to change from the Department of Justice, and I think that's really the only thing from the US that could happen, is if that changed and they started to look at FIFA as being effectively a mafia organization or a mafia-like organization. And then there's the Swiss authorities, of course, as well, who have got criminal investigations into the Blatter Platini payment and are looking at a whole range of other issues. And in Switzerland, they have the power to look at FIFA's status as an association and whether it should keep that. I mean, neither of those organizations, either the Swiss or the US authorities, have said anything clear that they would make those kind of moves, but it's clearly in the background as something that FIFA would be concerned about.
All right, so Simon, what is what between now and I believe late February is the election. What do we? I mean, we obviously, again, Michel Platini is effectively eliminated from that race as long as he's has a ban. He can appeal it, but will that even come close to being done in time for him to be involved? And then where does that leave the election?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, the bookmakers' favourites is Sheikh Salman from Bahrain. There's Gianni Infantino from UEFA, who's in the race as well. Jerome Champagne and Prince Ali as well in the battle. So, I mean, that election, really nothing changes as a result of this. Platini is no nearer getting back into the race. In fact, he's further away. And, of course, Blatter has no influence over it, no direct influence anyway. So, I mean, at the moment, all the indications are that, Sheikh Salman, the president of the Asian Football Confederation, looks the favourite to win the next election, which is going to be, an interesting thing because he really hasn't said much about what he wants to do so far.
It just, we know it's about, consolidating those votes behind the scenes, not necessarily public face, although Platini has been out there publicly, Simon. What does this mean for? I don't have any understanding. What does this mean for Platini and his role with UEFA? He obviously cannot be UEFA president if he's banned from football.
No, I mean, if he doesn't get it overturned, UEFA has been as good to Michel Platini as I think they could be in the circumstances of not replacing him really as president while he was suspended, waiting. But at a certain point in time, if he's banned for football for 8 years and he doesn't win those appeals, then, UEFA is going to have another president. And there's going to be, quite a lot of questions asked, I would think, within UEFA about, what direction they should be going in and their relationship with FIFA and what they should be doing, because UEFA doesn't really have that kind of, they've lectured FIFA about things over the years, but actually, FIFA's the one that seems to have now an independent ethics committee that's rooting out problems. There's no such structure really within UEFA, so that's going to be one of the issues UEFA has to address. And actually, the fallout from this, I think, we haven't even got started with it. How is this going to affect CONCACAF in our region? Is CONCACAF going to be able to just elect another president and carry on as though nothing's happened with its last three presidents have been arrested? The fallout's going to continue for a long time on this. We're really not anywhere near the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have these independent, so to speak, sort of bodies, although they're all part of the same group. But in CONCACAF specifically, since you mentioned it, Simon, we've heard that they're not going to elect or they're not going to fill the presidential post via the bylaws. They're going to wait until they can hold an election. What does that say for you? I mean, what does that say about CONCACAF's position at this point? Again, having the last three presidents end up in either indicted or in jail.
Well, I think it tells us that there's behind the scenes in CONCACAF, the picture I get, there's quite a lot of tension there at the moment, because certainly some people in the Caribbean are wondering how long the organization can go on. They haven't re-elected a proper executive committee. They're just people who were left or from they haven't replaced the people who were arrested. They haven't got a president at the moment. They haven't got a fixed date yet for a Congress. So the people are, within CONCACAF, I know there are some people saying, well, how long is this going to go on for? We're going to have 6 months without a leader? Are we going to really wait until May, till the Congress? Maybe some people, I've heard some whispers that, nothing more than whispers really, that some people pushing for an earlier Congress and all kinds of tension over, who's to blame for the mess that CONCACAF's in. There's always been a little bit of a tension there between the three component parts of CONCACAF, the North American, the Central American, and the Caribbean. And it's going to be very interesting to see whether CONCACAF can come out of this whenever they have a Congress next year with a reformed structure and with, a united structure where everyone's happy working together. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult because really in all of this, the most extreme case is that of CONCACAF to have lost so many of their top officials, CONMEBOL also, but really, CONCACAF's going to have to take a long, hard look at how it organizes itself. Again, does it have its own ethics committee? Has it done enough in the past to root out people? It obviously hasn't.
Absolutely. And those two, CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, getting in bed together for the Copa America, which we're all excited for, but recognize it has many, perhaps, issues behind the scenes. Simon Evans in Europe, in Zurich right now, there for the announcement of the bans for Michel Platini and Sepp Blatter. Simon, enjoy your trip, and thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll have you on soon.
Okay, look forward to that. Cheers, Jason.
There goes Simon Evans. Great stuff from him. Is good guy, Simon Evans. Let's take a step aside. We'll come back. We'll open the phone lines up. We'll talk to you on a Monday. Soccer Morning, WorldSoccerTalk.com.
Wide awake in the middle of the desert heat. 100 I can't get enough of myself.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
All right, we are back. It is Monday. It is Soccer Morning. It is WorldSoccerTalk.com. And man, we've given you a lot to chew on today. A lot of information, a lot of good analysis, as it were. German football with Ross Dunbar. Zurich and the FIFA scandal with our friend Simon Evans. Good stuff there as well. I mean, bad stuff. Good talking about it. Good analysis, like I already said. And now the phone lines are open. 646-832-3909. 646-832-3909. If you want to change the subject, if you prefer not to talk about Sepp Blatter, Michel Platini, FIFA corruption, dirty dealings, done dirt cheap, whatever, all that stuff. If you'd rather not talk about that, then now's your chance to get in and change the subject. Maybe you want to talk about Marco Fabian going to Eintracht Frankfurt. No? Anybody? No? Maybe you want to talk about what else happened? Maybe you want to talk about the Premier League right now because, good Lord, it's getting fancy over there. Things are all over the place. Leicester continuing to win. Arsenal and Manchester City playing today. If Arsenal wants to be within touching distance of Leicester, they kind of need a win today. At home against Manchester City. Plus, they put some distance between themselves and Manchester City. Right now, Tottenham in fourth. Manchester United tied on 29 points with Tottenham, but back, behind them in goal difference. Crystal Palace in sixth. Watford in seventh. What? Who? Watford? West Ham in eighth. Liverpool all the way down to ninth now after that destruction by Watford. At the bottom of the table, Aston Villa again. I'm very sad about Aston Villa. I'm just very sad. Robert in L.A. is just blowing me up on Twitter. He wants me to talk about Jimmy Hill. Jimmy Hill, former player, coach, match of the day host, one-time ref, ended, campaign to end the maximum wage for players in England. Transformative figure, Jimmy Hill. I don't know much about him, okay? I'll admit. So, Robert, when I bring him up only because you want me to. And because, yeah, he was important to the game, but I don't know a lot. I need to read about Jimmy Hill. Okay, so it played years and years and years for Fulham. Played a little bit for Brentford before that, but mainly his name was made in broadcasting. Was a big one of the original sort of popular pundits in England. Had a reputation, this is directly from Wikipedia, so take it for what it's worth, had a reputation as an all-around innovator in football as well as helping to get rid of the maximum wage. He commissioned the first English all-seater stadium, lifted a ban on media interviews, introduced the first electronic scoreboard in 1964, the first color matchday program, and in 1965 was the first to show a live match via closed-circuit television on 4 giant screens at Coventry. He has been credited with the introduction of the 3 points for a win system pioneered by the FA in 1981. Also credited with the idea of using the first panel of football pundits for the 1970 World Cup. So there you go. Jimmy Hill. Rest in peace. Died at the age of 87 on Saturday. All right. Holden on Twitter, Holden Cribb, has sent me an incredible story. Incredible story related to the FIFA nonsense, but in a much better, more fun to talk about sort of way. This is this is about the FIFA movie. What was it called? Trevor, you saw it, right? United Colors. What was it called? United Passions. United Passions. They spent $27 million to make this movie. FIFA put a lot of the money into the film. FIFA itself paid for a lot of this because Sepp Blatter wanted a propaganda film based on FIFA and his story. Now, who played Sepp Blatter in the movie? Anybody? Do you remember? Trevor, you know, right? Tim Roth. Tim Roth played Sepp Blatter in the movie. Now you're like, wait a second. Like Tim Roth? Like the actual real, like that good, the guy from Pulp Fiction, or not Pulp Fiction, the guy from Reservoir Dogs? Tim Roth? He was in Pulp Fiction too. That's forgot about that. That guy? Like decent actor, Tim Roth, that people actually like and enjoy. Why was he in this movie? He was in the movie because of the money. The film is awful. I hated doing it. It was the wrong film, but for the right reasons. I had 2 kids in college, so I had to make a decision, and it was probably poorly judged. But once you make that decision, you have to follow through. It's a hard road, being it's something you don't want to do, but I'm glad I did it for my family. As for FIFA, I thought the movie would be much more about the corruption of this guy at first. I don't know if he's going to go down. He seems to have survived everything that has been thrown at him. There doesn't seem to be any way you can get to them because of all those big corporations behind them. It looks the most promising though. It looks like he is on the back foot now because he looks more exposed than he has ever been in the past. So Tim Roth, he took the money, did the thing for the money. I don't know what he got paid, by the way. I hope it was a good amount of cash. By the way, $27 million to make United Passions. You know how much it made? First one, I will take callers here. I would like to take some guess. Don't look it up. Call me up. Guess how much United Passions made. Because it is awesome. Awesomely bad. Awesomely good in the sense that we don't want FIFA to succeed in anything ever. Really. Here we go. 646-832-3909. I understand, look, it's a holiday week. You may already be on vacation. If you're not on vacation, it's very hard to concentrate at work. I mean, what gets done in corporate America on the Monday before Christmas? Anything? Anything at all? No, of course not. And you should be listening to this show, and you should be talking about soccer. United Passions, Tim Roth. David Beckham wants to sign Zlatan Ibrahimovic as his first player for the Miami team. By that point, Zlatan's going to be 38 years old. Do we want a 38-year-old Zlatan in MLS? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Anybody? I love Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I share a birthday with Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Slightly older, just like a year. I think I'm a year. No, I'm a couple years older. He'll be 30. Sorry, 33. He just turned 33. Let me check on Zlatan's age because I want to make sure I get this right. I always forget how much older than Zlatan I am. Zlatan just turned 34, so I'm 2 years older than Zlatan. Let's go to Tyler in Virginia. Hey, Tyler.
Hey, what's going on, Jason?
Oh, man, it's Monday. What's going on with you?
Not much. Just wanted to call and throw you a guess about how much United Passion.
How much do you think it made? Go ahead. Guess.
I heard it was criminally low. I'm gonna say 100,000.
Okay. You went. If we're doing Price is Right rules, except this isn't a bidding situation, but if we did it, you'd be pretty close. It made $200,000. That's insane, by the way. I mean, that's like how much are tickets these days? $10, something like that for a movie ticket, right? I mean, you what? Like really? I can't believe it only made. I mean, it must be dog doo doo. It must be the worst movie of. I don't know. All right, what else? You got anything else you want to talk about?
Oh yeah, no. I heard you talking about Ibra to Miami with David Beckham instead. But I mean, I think that could be a solid little move. I don't know about how you feel about it. Well,
I mean, again, Zlatan just turned 34 this year. So by the time they get that stadium built and that team off the ground, it'll be 2018? So 3 years.
Yeah, about right.
3 years from now, he'll be 30. He'll be 36, 37 years old. Is that the kind of Zlatan you want?
Well, it depends. I mean, like I said, obviously this is speculative, but I mean, if he can have the kind of impact that Drogba had in terms of being committed, really bringing it every time he steps on the pitch.
Yeah, I hope so.
Then I wouldn't have a problem with it because I mean, Ibra's a strong enough, physical enough guy that he could probably handle, or at least I think he could. Playing in MLS at that older age.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, as you said, it's all about commitment, right? If he walks into that team and says, "I want to win things," and I know this isn't the level I used to play at, but I'm ready to go, then it could be good. If he becomes Zlatan who wants to be on the beach most of the time, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, he's an entertainer, so you're going to get some headlines and some controversial comments and statements from him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that'll be fun too. All right, Tyler, you got anything else?
Nah, man, have a good one.
Hey, thanks a lot. Goes Tyler. Happy holidays, Tyler. Let's check in with our man Bill up in New York. Hey, Bill.
Jason, what's happening?
It's FIFA nonsense. It's the week of this week of a holiday. I'm trying to stay focused, Bill.
Well, now I've taken your advice in the past, and actually last weekend I watched the movie Scrooge because you and Jared talked about what a great movie it was.
Yeah. Jared loves that movie.
Now, did you take my advice and watch the Club World Cup?
I did not. It was at 5:30 in the morning, Bill.
You have a DVR. I know you have a DVR.
Yeah, but I typically spend my weekends away from home, so it becomes a situation where unless I remember to do it on Friday, and I'm always rushed on Friday, then it doesn't get done, and then I don't have it to watch back. I don't know. I don't know, Bill. You're like a one-man
game.
All right, go ahead.
Is there a player on Barcelona that wouldn't be a DP in MLS?
No.
It was insane. They're so much better, the whole team. And then I know they're talking about the guy Hill, who just passed away, and everything he's credited for. I'm not sure if you brought this up. I think they said he's credited for getting rid of the salary cap in England. Is that correct?
Well, he's credited with pushing for the players to not be limited in their So basically, they had it's one of those situations where back then, without the TV money involved, the owners were very, just like baseball owners used to be very hard on players, and you only could make so much money. I mean, people want to think of of Ruth and Mantle and DiMaggio is they were world famous guys, but they weren't making nearly as much money as you think they should have been. And the reason was because the owners all colluded to make sure that these guys weren't making making that much money. The same thing was happening in England. It's a maximum wage thing. There was a cap on how much one player could make, and he campaigned to have that removed.
Because he's the reason why that game was so lopsided, I think. Barcelona was just man for man, it was just so much better. Yeah,
it's a matter of the money that comes in and certain teams consolidating that money. I don't know that it's a good thing, but yeah, it is what it is.
And then River Plate finally gets a break, and they get a great shot on goal, and the goalkeeper, I'm forgetting his name right now, makes an incredible save. So you have these three guys up front who can score off anybody, and then you finally get through, and then the goalie makes an incredible save on you. Nothing was working out for River Plate.
Mm-hmm. Just a little background here, Bill. There was a maximum wage in England until 1961, at which point it was abolished after Jimmy Hill, chairman of the Professional Footballers Association, threatened to strike. Before then, players earned a maximum of £20 a week, roughly £400 in current money. That's it, a week, which was then around the average wage for a British worker. In justifying the strike action, one union representative stated that he admired people in the mining community, but it didn't mean they could cope with marking Stanley Matthews on a Saturday afternoon. So there you go. It was about like just an artificial cap on essentially MLS has that now. I mean, there are, you can go above it for three players, but the MLS has a wage cap.
Yeah, and with the salary cap with us, we also keep putting more money into the league, the TAM money and whatever else they have. Now, the players' union, they got to be ecstatic with this because this isn't even a collective bargaining agreement, and they're getting more and more money put towards the players. Are they saying anything about this?
The head of the players' union, Bob Foose, said that while he is glad they're putting more money into the player salaries, that this is convoluted and it's too complicated. Basically, is what he said.
Yeah. I can't follow it myself. Yeah. Jason, thank you very much.
All right, Bill. There's good stuff from Bill. All right, that's a good place to wrap up this edition. We had two very excellent guests. Thank you very much to Ross Dunbar and Simon Evans for making their appearances on this program. I will implore you to follow us on Twitter at Soccer Morning. Go to iTunes and do that whole thing, the iTunes thing, and subscribe and stuff. And support World Soccer Talk, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. All right, bye.
Did my invitations disappear? Why'd I put my heart on every cursive letter? Tell me why the hell no one is here.